Welcome to Creative Ops Compass, the podcast for in-house creative leaders who want to run tighter operations, improve stakeholder relationships, and position their teams as genuine strategic partners. I'm Jesse Krinsky, a creative operations consultant and the founder of InFocus Consulting. A couple of weeks ago, I had a conversation with an in-house creative leader. She's talented, she's experienced, she clearly cares about her team, but she was also very jaded, maybe even complacent. At some point, she had decided that nothing in her company was ever really going to change. We were talking about workload, expectations, and the usual in-house chaos. And whenever I suggested a possible shift, like a new intake process or a RACI, her answer was some version of, "Yeah, but that'll never happen here." What she didn't realize was that belief alone was enough to guarantee that nothing actually would change. Because when you're convinced that transformation is not possible, you stop looking for ways to make it possible. Right? You don't push for better conversations with leadership. You don't experiment with new kinds of working. You don't try to build allies or champions across the business. You kind of conserve energy by opting out. And what's even worse is the team follows your lead. If the leader believes that she's stuck, the team learns to live with being stuck, right? They adapt to the dysfunction instead of questioning it. They get really good at surviving the way things are instead of imagining how things could be. So the conversation I had with that creative director was a reminder of something that I've had to learn the hard way in my own career. When you decide this can't change, you've already made the most important decision in the whole process. You've chosen what the outcome is before the work even begins. So in this episode, I want to talk about choice, the mindset that either locks us into the old in-house model or opens the door to something very different. There's a concept I love called identity-based resilience. It means basically, instead of treating challenges as a pile of tasks that you have to grind through, you treat them as expressions of who you are, of, in this case, the kind of leader you want to be. So the example I like to give is this. If you want to start going to the gym at 6 a.m., I don't know why you would, but if you did, you don't start with setting your alarm clock. You start by telling yourself, I am the kind of person who goes to the gym at 6 a.m. So the belief comes first, and then the behavior will follow. Then the behavior reinforces the belief that you set it up from the beginning. So for in-house creative leaders, the sequence basically looks like this. First, you decide that things will change. Not that they should, that they will. So let's say you want your team to be less reactionary or to stop acting like a service provider and become the strategic business function that it should be. Second, you define how that'll happen, how the behaviors or processes or relationships will change to make step one real. And third, you start acting in line with that identity, even in small, maybe uncomfortable ways. So again, belief enables the action, and the action validates the belief. And over time, it becomes a positive loop instead of the negative spiral that we're all used to. This is just how it is, can become an excuse not to try. So what does this look like on the ground day to day? It could start with the moment that a request hits your inbox. So instead of thinking, how fast can we turn this around? Start asking yourself, okay, what business outcome is this request actually pointing toward? You begin to see every ask as data about priorities and opportunities, not just work to be done. It can show up when you say something like, before we commit to this, can we clarify the problem we're solving? Instead of saying, sure, we'll get started. It can also show up when you bring options and trade-offs to stakeholders instead of just accepting every brief as fixed. And over time, these tiny acts of strategy, asking better questions, refitting requests, connecting work to outcomes, it starts to change how people experience your team. So you're not just the people who make things. You are the people who decide what should be made and why. Also, and this is so important, this is about more than protecting your team. It's really about protecting the business. Because in-house creative teams are one of the few groups that sit at the intersection of brand and customer insight and execution. So when you operate strategically, you're helping the whole organization stop wasting resources on misaligned work. So if you're listening to this right now and you're feeling that friction, that sense that your team is capable of more than what your company is currently asking of you, that's a sign that you need to stop waiting for permission. Think of it as an invitation to start redefining your identity as a creative leader. Decide that things will change. Decide the kind of leader you're going to be. Take one small action this week that reflects that identity, whether it's a tougher question in a briefing or a conversation with a stakeholder or a new boundary around what your team does and doesn't take on. Belief enables action. Action validates the belief. For in-house creative teams, that cycle is how you move from being seen as a cost center to being recognized as a real strategic force inside the business. If you're looking for a place to start, I built a free Creative Ops assessment. It'll show you exactly where your team stands today, and it takes only about 3 minutes. You can find it at infocusconsulting.net/assessment, and the link is in the episode show notes. Thanks for listening.